So today we get to talk about the Battle of Fredericksburg. But before we dive into this next major engagement in the Eastern Theater, I'm starting here with the last slide that we went over in our notes previously, and that is the Battle of Antietam. And I may have already said this, but we're keeping track of these dates. We're keeping track of numbers of soldiers that perish in these battles, and you'll never have to remember those, but I'm trying to keep these dates as we go through, just as a timeline, as a reference, so we can have a sense of where we are as we progress through the 4 years of war. And I'm giving you these numbers, as I did especially with the Battle of Antietam, the bloodiest single day ever in American history, certainly the bloodiest day of the Civil War, just so we can understand and have some small conception of the amount of life that was lost in this war. You'll never have to remember those numbers on a test. It's just so you understand the big picture of what we're talking about. All right, so the reason I'm starting here is just do a quick little review of the image that I put up here on this slide. I don't know if you remember what we called that bridge. It was where that terrible Union blunder took place, led by the general who was in charge of that region of the battlefield. And because of him leading this terrible blunder and this massacre trying to cross this bridge, it becomes known as Burnside Bridge. So that's where we ended with the Battle of Antietam, with that strange and fascinating, well, that wasn't a strange and fascinating fact, but it's a segue into the strange and fascinating fact for today. And that that gets us to the Battle of Fredericksburg. Again, putting some dates up there so we can see that Fredericksburg is going to occur on December 11th through the 15th, give or take. And there's different dates for these because it depends on how long you look at the campaign versus the actual fighting, whatever. So we're going to go with December 11th through the 15th, multiple days of fighting in 1862 in Fredericksburg, Maryland. All right. Now, we're going to start here with yet another new commander of the Union Army. After the failed attack, the failed battle at Antietam, this horrible, awful, terrible day, McClellan had gotten his second chance from President Lincoln, and it was a terrible failure. McClellan is replaced yet again by President Lincoln. So we're starting to see this trend again, this trend in the leadership in the Union versus the leadership of the armies of the Confederacy is quite a bit different. So who does President Lincoln replace McClellan with? None other than Ambrose Burnside. What a great name, General Ambrose Burnside. Yes, the General Ambrose Burnside that committed the terrible blunder at Burnside Bridge just a few months earlier at the Battle of Antietam. But here we have General Ambrose Burnside, and if you take a look at this guy, you can't mistake him because of these massive land chops that we can see here with General Burnside. And he sort of became very well recognized for this facial hair, maybe the greatest facial hair of the Civil War, which, by the way, that's a pretty hard honor to win with the way these guys were in the Civil War. But these big, giant sideburns that he grew out become known as sideburns. Nobody called them that before General Ambrose Burnside. It made them very stylish. And so now today when you see a guy wearing this style, certainly it doesn't have to be that pronounced, but we call these sideburns here, right? Guys, if any of you can grow it out there, start growing the sideburns out. Who knows, maybe you'll be a general someday like Ambrose Burnside. So there's a strange and fascinating fact for the day. Kick knowledge at the dinner table tonight. I don't know, maybe you got a big brother or dad or grandpap or somebody who's got some sideburns going on. Just make mention of them, and then all of a sudden, you can tell your family where that term came from, Ambrose Burnside. Well, Ambrose Burnside is put in charge of the Army of the Potomac, and he is put in charge with the next attempt to try to move on Richmond and capture the Confederate city. And all I'm going to have you put in your notes is that this was another failed attempt at attacking Richmond. There's a little bit more to it than just that. This Confederate victory, that's all we're going to put in our notes. This Confederate victory is just yet another example of the Confederates having their morale boosted, of them starting to feel like Their army was unstoppable, and that's all we're going to put in our notes for the terrible loss at Fredericksburg. And instead, we're going to come over here, and we're going to draw a few things out as I explain the battle, all right? So I explain this one because just to understand the horrific defeat that it was, you kind of got to see it played out on a kind of like a map. So I'm going to draw it out sort of like a map anyway. Let me see where we're at here. I'm going to try to draw it in here, so I don't want to go any further. So hopefully you can see me here. All right, so I'm going to set it up here this way. As Burnside takes command of the army, he starts to devise a plan after the terrible loss at Antietam to somehow maneuver around General Lee's army and make an advance towards Richmond and make General Lee chase him and stop him from getting to Richmond, as opposed to trying to go right through General Lee's army. He figures out the geography of the situation, and he has a plan to make this movement through this town of Fredericksburg. He believes that he can take over Fredericksburg. He's going to have a clear shot to Richmond, and he can get there before Lee can maneuver his troops and stop him. So what we have here is there's a hillside that overlooks the river that flows. This is the Rappahannock River here. On the other side of the river is the city of Fredericksburg. Put a couple little houses in here on the streets. So that's the city of Fredericksburg. On the other side of Fredericksburg, there is this long, wide open field that slopes gradually upward, eventually to a sunken road at the top of this. It's not a hill so much as it is just a gradual slope. It's about a mile-long slope of open ground upward. And there's this stone retaining wall that's built here up at the top of this other side of this field. And on the other side of this stone retaining wall, there is this road that runs behind this wall. On the other side of that road, there is a hillside. It's called Marty's Heights up here. So that's just the setup for the battlefield. The Richmond, by the way, is this way. So the Union moves on Fredericksburg, and they get to this hillside over here, under the leadership of Burnside, overlooking the river and the town. Burnside realizes that they need to cross this river, take over the town of Fredericksburg, and then they can move with a clear shot to Richmond before Lee can stop them. The problem is they got to cross this river. So Burnside makes a decision to try to cross at Fredericksburg to take over the town, but that involves moving what we call pontoon bridges to the battlefield, to the front lines, and then building these bridges to cross the river. So Burnside makes the decision to wait for these bridges to move through the supply lines. And he waits for these bridges to move up to the supply lines. And he waits for the bridges to move to the supply lines. And he continues to, this goes on for weeks, and it might even be months of them just waiting up on this hillside overlooking Fredericksburg. Now, in the meantime, what do you think's happening with General Lee and the Confederate Army? They are using their intelligence, their scouting, to figure out what this plan is, and they recognize that the Union has moved towards Fredericksburg, and so Lee has time to move his army to this battlefield as well, and the Confederates, under Lee, are going to set up defensive positions on this hillside on the other side of town. So you got Burnside and the Union waiting over here. You got Lee moving his forces up on the hillsides overlooking the town, and eventually the bridges show up. And so the Union soldiers start to build these bridges. There's these floating pontoons that they string together, and then they strap boards across them like this, planks, and they build several of these across the Rappahannock River. And when that happens, then finally the Union forces can come down off the hill and start moving across these bridges. But in the meantime, the Confederates have occupied the town. They've set up fortifications with snipers. And the whole time that the Union is trying to build these bridges, you got Confederate snipers just picking them off and picking them off. Now, eventually, the bridges do get built, and eventually the Union is just able to start advancing across the river. Once they do that, there is fighting all throughout the city of Fredericksburg. house to house, hand to hand, but eventually the Confederates retreat from the town and the Union takes over the town. Those Confederates who were defending the town retreat to the other side of this field where they set up defensive positions behind this road, behind this wall along this road, and they set up defensive positions up here on this hillside, and they dig in with their artillery. Now, the Union has to make a decision, and Burnside decides to launch a massive assault across this wide open field that slopes gradually upward to where the Confederates are dug in behind a stone wall and sitting up on a hill aiming their cannon fire down at them. Well, you can imagine what the result of this assault was. The Union launches this massive assault and they try to cross this field, and they are slaughtered by the Confederates. Now, a few different positions, Union forces make it just about to the stone wall, and it looks as though they may be able to breach the Confederate position and push them back and bust a hole in their lines, but the Confederates are able to reinforce these positions and then eventually stop those advances over the stone wall. And in the end, the Union will have to retreat off of this open field, defeated, decimated, slaughtered, and embarrassed on some level yet one more time by Robert E. Lee and the Confederate Army. So that's a little explanation of how the Battle of Fredericksburg unfolded. And if we go back to the notes, just a reminder, I kept it real simple on the notes. Just a quick reminder that it is a terrible, terrible loss for Ambrose Burnside and the Union, and it is a great victory yet again for General Lee and his Confederates.